Faigie, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. How are you?
My pleasure. Great. I am great.
Yes, and I love that Faigie contacted me and said you didn't talk about alcohol inks yet, so let's talk about it. I love alcohol inks and I actually do alcohol inks, but it has been a while that I posted things with alcohol inks because for me, it's a whole process in my studio for me to be able to do alcohol inks, so I don't get to that very often.
You
Because
it's your process because you're worried about the fumes, or if
yeah,
it's set.
it's the space here, and I have to protect the floor and things
Uh-huh.
like that. So and I do use a mask, respirator mask, when I use alcohol inks. Um, but yeah, but first of all, tell us where you are and what you do.
Uh-huh. Okay. So I'm in New York, and I know you're in Florida, and it's really hot there. It really has gotten. It's been a really hot summer here, and
But
now it cooled off. So
where in
it's
New York are you?
I'm not far from Kennedy Airport. I'm
Oh,
about
yeah, I'm very
2 minutes.
familiar with New York because we lived in New Jersey and we were all the time in New York. My
Ah,
husband worked in New York. Yeah.
okay. So I'm like, it's really legally Queens, but I'm closer to Long Island,
Oh,
five towns. So it's really not far. We have planes coming over us all the time. You might hear we're really right here. Um, and what I do is, well, I've kind of changed. I changed things in my, won't say my age, but in my 50s, right? So I'm trained as an early childhood educator,
mm-hmm.
and I was a preschool, early childhood teacher. I was a director, and I was really, the thing I loved most about working with kids was the art.
Mm-hmm.
I loved giving them creative art. I was like very against all these like standard copycat arts and crafts that they give in so many of the kindergartens.
Yeah.
And I would fight against that. I even gave workshops to other teachers in schools and how to do it developmentally appropriate. So I actually started a website for parents and teachers
Mm-hmm.
uh, about how to do art. And then I ended up taking a course, an online course on how to market it. And
Mm.
and I was explaining how a lot of people who feel um, not creative, a lot of it comes from their early experiences. Maybe they were given all kinds of crafts to do that didn't allow them to do things at their own level. So they kind of made them feel like they can't do anything and they're not
Mm-hmm.
creative. So there's one of my coaches there. She said, why don't did you ever consider starting a website for adults on creativity and kind of teaching them why they don't feel creative? So
Mm.
I was intrigued and I started doing research. And I started doing research on creativity. And I kept coming across this term, mixed media. What is this mixed media? And I started taking books out of the library, and then I started buying books, and I started buying supplies. Once you get into doing
Yep.
that's an addiction on its own. And I got totally obsessed with mixed media, and I started this website that was surrounding mixed media. But what I would do was I would look through my library site for different books that I could
Mm-hmm.
try out. And one day I was scrolling through, and all of a sudden I found this book. It was called Pigments of Your Imagination, about
Mm.
alcohol inks. And I said, what is that? And I ordered the book, and I ended up buying the book, and I fell in love with alcohol inks. The vibrancy, the
Yeah.
fluidity, the it was just something that I really just got more and more into it. So I ended up uh, about 10 years ago, I became an art teacher. I'm an elementary school art teacher, part time in a small private school not far from me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started working with adults. And I realized that so many adults who love creativity and love art but just feel so uncreative. They can't draw right. I'm sure you've heard many, many times. Me, I can't draw a straight line. That's
Mm-hmm.
like classic. And I realized that alcohol inks is like the perfect way to get people to break out of their feeling of they need to be perfect, because
Yes.
And everyone who tries alcohol links falls in love with it, and it's just it's very fluid and forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do so many things with it, and it really helps people who need perfection, because as you know, since you've used it a little, that alcohol ink leads you instead of you
Yeah.
leading it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can. There is a whole genre of alcohol ink artists who create really realistic, beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful,
they paint with brushes and everything. Yeah.
tiny, tiny, tiny bit amounts. Now, you can use also alcohol ink markers. That's actually,
Right.
I actually have. I have a free video starting people off on, on my site, Creativity Reignited, on how to start with alcohol ink markers. But in a certain way, it's a different kind of thing. It's a marker art, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. You can do activities that make the markers look a little bit more like regular alcohol inks as well. But
Mm-hmm.
so I found that the more I got into it, I started finding a lot of times people will get into alcohol inks, and they'll drip some and they'll blow a little bit, and then they say, and now what? Like, where do I go from here?
Mm-hmm.
And the more I got into it, the more I saw how many things you can do with it. And lately, the past number of months, I've been kind of creating these like mixed media alcohol ink pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be very careful about the colors I use, because color is really what can make or break it. If you use the right colors, you'll just get something beautiful. And then I'll add gold leaf and maybe some
Yeah.
stem work and maybe some pen work. And there's just so many things you can do with alcohol inks. First of all, you could make your alcohol ink pieces into cards. You can cut them up and use them for collages.
Yeah.
You can doodle on top of them. I'm in the middle of doing a series not far from where I live, just like a 6 week series with a group of ladies.
Mm-hmm.
We're using stencils. We're doing
Yeah.
semi-abstract flowers and landscapes. There's just so many things to do with it, and people report how healing it is. One of my students told me she went through a medical saga with one of her kids. She said working with the alcohol inks saved her, because she was able to go in there and just get into the flow.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, like, mixed media, I love mixed media. I still do mixed media. I actually have a small class, a weekly class in my house that's going on 5 years. We do mixed media.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's something about alcohol inks it's just different. And it's interesting what you say about using a respirator. So it wasn't until I was into it a while that I saw on these groups people talking about how you must use a respirator. And what I have found, that if I just use the inks without using a lot of alcohol, it doesn't affect me that much. But everyone is different.
Yeah.
Everyone is
It gives me headaches. So
Ah, okay. So everyone is some people. So I do have a respirator. There was a period of time when I was doing these like wispies. You see these all over where they're blown gold, like these gorgeous wispies. You need a lot of alcohol for that,
yeah.
and it's affecting me. So I got a respirator. But a couple of weeks ago, I was doing a class here with a group of ladies,
Mm-hmm.
and one lady had to leave because it was
Yeah.
bothering her. Nobody else it affected at
Yeah.
all. So I think it very much like if you have asthma, I mean, if you work outside, that's for sure fine. But a lot of times, if you have a fan
Yeah,
blowing,
I am never working outside, but if I am working inside, I always like to use because why not?
yeah, if it's, I'm just very sensory also. So I'm
Yeah,
like
I'm very
very,
sensitive, even like when if I pass in a store that has a lot of perfumes and stuff, I
oh,
have immediate
oh,
headaches.
uh-huh.
So
Yeah,
it's
strong,
just a combination of a lot of smells and
right, right.
things
So
like
I
that.
find some people say that they can work with it for hours and it doesn't affect them. And some people, they start right away.
I think that alcohol wink, the beauty of it, it's you always gonna do something pretty without even controlling it.
Right.
And that's the amazing thing of alcohol inks. They are so fluid, but I think what I like most, especially a person that loves vibrant colors instead of muted colors is that
Right.
they are so vibrant.
Yeah.
I actually I buy a lot of the alcohol markers refuse to
Oh,
use.
like Copic, the
Yeah.
Copic
Yeah, I
refill.
have, yeah, some colors I like, and I can just find these colors the way I
Right.
like in the Copic refill.
So the Copic refills I find are very expensive. So that's
They
why,
are. They are
yeah. So,
expensive.
right.
That's
So
why I don't buy a lot of them. But there are some colors that I'm like, I could not find any color like that.
really, but like even in Ranger and Pinata, there's so many. There's
No,
always new brands
there
coming.
is f- uh, four sets of colors that I just buy as a Copic.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
and if I'm not wrong, Copics have way more colors than Ranger has.
Oh yeah, they have like
Yeah,
360. But
yeah. They are more expensive, but also they are bigger. The size
uh-huh,
the refill comes is way bigger than the Ranger. So I don't know if somebody's gonna calculate between the ounces and the
uh-huh,
prices, if really
uh-huh.
Ranger is that cheaper, because Ranger is cheaper because their size bottle is really small.
They also last pretty long.
Yeah,
Well, that was something.
that's
But I
true.
remember when I first got into it, I just every time they would come out with new colors, they're always coming out with new colors, and I was just buying and buying, and then I realized, you know what? You end up sticking with just the same colors, and there's certain colors that I never really use. So I just see which colors. I know there's certain, let's say you don't need a lot of reds, right? But you do need a lot of greens. So let's say like this one of the activities I do with my students, we do like a blown garden where we blow through a straw to get grass, and you need a lot of different tones of green. So I like a lot of tones of greens. But let's say reds, you don't need that many. They
Yeah,
have a whole
they're
bunch of different,
strong. Yeah.
you just don't need as much as it, just part of that addiction.
Do you do your own colors? Like, do you mix colors and do your own?
No, no, I actually, I know there are, I was actually on a group recently, and I was asking people because I was going to be doing a class like with a very large group of women, 25 women. I was just asking people how they do it, and one woman says she just gives three colors. She gives red, blue, and yellow, the primaries,
Oh,
and
she
she
makes everything.
mixes them. I don't know. I would find that experience to be less than. I see one of the excitements I see with women when I do classes like in person, just finding the new colors and seeing how it looks and how they merge on top of each other. So I think there is definitely a benefit to doing something where you just use the three primary colors. But I find part of the excitement is like looking at all those colors, and it's like it's so exciting. Oh, let me see how this color interacts with that color. So, but there's so many ways to go. There's so many ways to go. I find like even in terms of like acrylics, right? If you have acrylics, so you learn how to paint with it, and you can do some activities with it. But there's so many. It's just and a lot of times people say, "Well, I have these alcohol inks. What do I do with them?" I remember actually once being in Michael's and
Mm-hmm.
thinking, I think I've used every material in this store except for alcohol inks, and there's just so much to do with them.
Yes, and if people are listening to this and they are not familiar nowadays, I mean, when I started, you could just find really Ranger and of course Copics that had alcohol inks. But now you go to Amazon, you put alcohol inks, you have all these kind of brands. But is Ranger is your favorite?
I use it the most. I have some pinata.
Yeah,
It's
Pinata
very well
is a good one as well.
very well known art. Jane Monteith. You know
Yeah.
who she is?
Mm-hmm.
So she's a very well known. She popularized a lot of the alcohol,
Yeah,
and I know she uses pinata
Pinata.
exclusively.
Yeah.
But I just find this. I find a lot of variety within Ranger,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I do have some pinatas. Like I like certain ones
I
of the
like
piano.
their gold. I like their
Yeah.
gold and their silver.
Oh, but you know what? Also, recently, the past few years, Ranger has come out with the alloys. The alloys
Yes.
are very similar to the pinata, rich gold and
Yeah.
brass.
Yeah.
Those are
But
gorgeous.
uh the alloys, I still have a trouble with them. I think I don't know. I like the way the pinata mixes
Uh-huh.
better than the alloys. I'm still like, not sure if I'm sold on them. Um, but if people wanted to start with alcohol wings, do you think it, it is too bad to start with maybe a cheaper brand that they see on Amazon? Do you see that it's not gonna react the same?
Okay, so one of the things I've seen, first of all, like I said, I like to start people off with markers. So what I do lately in my classes, my offline classes, is I bring my alcohol ink markers. Sharpies are alcohol ink markers, by the way,
Yes.
and people, colored Sharpies, you could use those. I like other brands that I've gotten on Amazon. So you can start with alcohol ink markers. Then what I have discovered is that I do not buy my inks on Amazon. They are expensive. I buy everything else on Amazon, but they are too expensive. I just bought a whole bunch of stuff from a place called Mr. Art,
Mm.
MrArt.com, MisterArt.
What about Ranger's site? Because now they deliver as well.
But Ranger doesn't give you breaks. Like for example, you'll pay like $4 a bottle for Ranger. I just paid $2.85
Mm.
on for Mr. Art, and I
They
bought a
must buy a lot. Yeah.
I guess, and there are other like Mr. Blix, you can get individual. So you can get the Ranger inks come in packages of 3. Now they're selling them in packages of 8. And then you can buy them individually. So
Right.
like if I would be starting out, I would buy them like with a couple of packages of the larger ones, the 8, or the 3, and then you get to see what you like, and then you can buy individual colors.
And do you use Yupo paper?
Oh, just one more thing. Joann's
Yes.
also has good prices on the inks. Okay,
Yeah.
so in terms of the paper, so when I first started, Yupo paper was the paper of choice because alcohol inks have to be used on non-porous surfaces.
Yes.
So Yupo paper is a plasticized paper, and it works the magic. Now the colors will show up on anything, even on watercolor paper, which is very porous. But if you
Mm-hmm.
want the magic of alcohol inks, like you put a drop down and just watch it spread. Like I'll never get bored of that. I just watch. It's just magic.
Yeah.
Um, so then I discovered on one of these groups that there's some of the photo papers work very well. So I use almost exclusively, I use Kirkland photo paper. That's the
Yep.
Costco paper, but
That's what I use.
you can't on the matte side only, not on the
Mm-hmm.
shiny side. You can't buy it in Costco. You have to buy it online. They
Yep.
just never have it. So
Mm-hmm.
and then also very important that you must use 91%, at least 91% alcohol, because anything lower than that is mixed
Yeah.
with water and it's just not as effective. You
Yeah.
don't have to only use paper, by the way. There's tiles are very popular.
Yes, it is.
Tiles, any ceramics, aluminum foil is non-porous. Wax paper, like freezer
I
paper.
saw people using aluminum foil.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
that's great if you want to do a collage. I've done that.
Yep.
We ink it up and you cut it up. It's just gorgeous.
So before I would just buy Yupo paper, but then I discovered in a class someone talking about this Kirkland paper, and I went online, I bought it, and I was like, wow, it really works,
And it's
and
so
it's
it's
so much cheaper.
right.
Because
You
I
know,
try other photo papers and they didn't work that well.
right. You have to try. People have reported some work better than others.
Yeah.
But if you large, there are some alcoholing artists that work really large. Then you have to go to the Yupo paper. They sell them in rolls. I think
Mm.
clicks, or like if you're really going to do really, if you're a real serious artist, I tend to buy packages of the 5x7 Kirkland, and then I also
Oh.
buy and I buy the 8.5 by 11. But I mostly work on the 5x7 because I just find it just it's big enough and small enough. I just find it perfect. It could be used as a card. It could be cut up. I've taken a few of them and mounted them um, on a board or a canvas. I like that size very much. That's
Hmm.
my go-to size that I.
What I see usually online is that some people are really hardcore on alcohol wings, that they just do alcohol wings and nothing else.
Uh-huh.
I love alcohol wings and I made pieces that are just alcohol wings. But I have to say, I started playing with alcohol wings and acrylics, and I just love the granulation that they give to the, because when you mix a little bit of diluted acrylic, not with water, people, with a medium. You dilute the acrylics with medium and you use alcohol ink, or you put alcohol on the acrylic ink and then you mixture with your alcohol inks on the paper. The granulation is just amazing.
So that's interesting. So you're saying you drop alcohol inks into the acrylic paint.
Yes,
Any color? You use white acrylic paint or any color?
any color,
Uh-huh.
any
So
color.
that's interesting. I've definitely used both. I've used after the alcohol inks dried. I've used acrylics on top, and vice versa. I love to have mixed media to use
Yeah.
things together, but
The thing
that's
is
an
that I think people think, oh, I can just use alcohol inks this way on this paper. No, you can use alcohol inks in other ways, but is that gonna
right,
look the same as that paper? No, it's not gonna look the same. Another thing that I try is alcohol ink on canvas, but I use a plaster. And so
right.
you have to put a plastic base, right?
Prime it
So
right.
you can use on canvas. So that's what
Uh-huh.
I used.
What do you
And
prime it? What do you use to prime the canvas?
I use a plaster.
What do
Or
you
yeah, and I used before also, I put a thick coat of acrylic paint on the canvas and I put alcohol ink on top because acrylics are plastic.
right.
It's not gonna work if you use gesso to prime, because most of artists they use gesso to prime the canvas.
Mhm.
And well, it's gonna have color, but it's gonna suck the color. It's not gonna be fluid. Um, and I just love to see the chemical reactions and the things that happens. You know,
Mhm.
I dropped.
Tell me what kind of plaster?
Oh, I don't remember. I
Just
just
the
bought
plastic that you use
anyone.
for the walls, like a
Yeah,
plastic for
yep,
the wall.
yep.
You know what
And
people use? I haven't tried it yet, but spray paint, like acrylic
yep.
or a natural spray paint.
Yes, yes. I used before triple glaze medium. You can also do that if you use triple glaze medium spray.
Hmm.
It also makes your canvas like a plastic because this is used on top to protect the paint. But I used alcohol inks before, little tiny drops on our watercolor paintings, because when you drop, it creates a reaction. It dilutes it, but it's a watercolor painting anyway. It's okay to dilute. And it gives a reaction like no. What I like about them is that they react with other materials like nothing else.
Hmm.
And I like to experiment, and they are flexible. I think this is a misunderstanding about alcohol inks, that they are not flexible, don't you think?
I think that it's just become popular that if you need to use alcohol inks, you need to use them on a non-porous surface. But you're
Yeah.
right. You can use them in many, many different ways. You're just not going to get the same effects. I think
Mm,
people are just saying if you're looking for that spreading
right.
and movement, then you need non-porous surface. If you
It's
want just
strong.
brilliant
Yeah.
colors, if you want the brilliant colors, you can use them with anything. And that's what, mixed media and art, that's the name of the game, is experimenting and just trying out.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you.
So today are you doing classes, alcohol ink classes? What kind of work are you doing today?
I do have some online classes, but that's I do offline classes. I do like local and like a little bit further out. And then I mean, if somebody is interested, they can go to my website at creativityreignited.com and they'll sign up and they'll get this video, just like the 6 activities, how to use markers, like kind of to start them out. And then they'll be on my list and they'll get more information about ways that they can take it further. Um,
So how do you use markers? Because do you just solve them?
So one of the fun things to do is and that's one of the activities I show is when you color with it, it depends what effects you want, and then you pour alcohol on it.
Oh,
And then
interesting.
you move it around, and then it has this very, very beautiful soft effect. And you have to be careful on how you do it, because if you use too many dark colors, the dark colors just take over and, just totally wash it out. So this is something that's like a little bit of a learning curve. You have to see how much to use it.
But do
Uh,
you dissolve completely what you did with the marker, or it stays whatever you draw in the beginning stays there? Like, when you're using, if you use a 6B pencil on top underneath a watercolor, you're still gonna see the 6B pencil there.
so if you do it on the shiny side of the paper, it won't dissolve the edges. But if you do
On the
it on
matte side.
size, it will
Ah,
dissolve, because that's
interesting.
what alcohol does. Alcohol removes. I have a couple of other different activities of how you can use alcohol to make designs by removing the color. But this is a way to make a very beautiful, and in a
Mm-hmm.
certain way you have a little bit more control, because you can decide, I'm going to color a little bit of this color here and a little bit color of that here, and then you uh, kind of learn.
What are your favorite markers?
So I have two sets. I have something called Cali art, and
I
then I
heard
have.
about those. They're becoming kind of the new trend out there.
But then I bought recently. I was looking for a larger set because I was doing a class and I needed more. So I bought something called, I think it's Artist Magic. Artist Magic. It's really, you just go onto Amazon and you Google alcohol ink markers, and you'll
So,
see.
have you tried Copic before?
Yes, they're just.
So, how do you think the Kelly markers compare with the Copic? Are they good quality like Copics?
I find that they are. Now, I have not used Copic years ago. I was into Copic, but I'm just too cheap. What should I tell you? I can't. They're just so expensive,
They are. They are expensive.
very expensive. So you know what I mean. I love to buy art materials, and I'd love to buy more art materials, and by spending less on certain things, you can buy
Right.
other
Although the
things.
Kelly markers, they are not very cheap either. They are not as Copics, but they are not cheap.
Well,
Uh,
this set that I just bought, Artist Magic, I think they're called. I bought a set of 80. I only paid like $24. That's
are they good? Because when I see prices like this, I'm like, this NOS must be good.
I'm absolutely fine with it. I just
Yeah.
I haven't totally experimented. I haven't. It's not like I'm sitting with Copic over here and the other ones that I'm comparing.
Why do you think the beginners should start with markers to have more control?
If they have it, because it's a non-threatening way to get into it. If you want to jump
Uh,
right in, then go right ahead. It's
mm,
just it's funny because I hadn't started with markers. I never even knew until I was in it a while. I didn't even know that you can use these markers somehow like alcohol inks. And then I started
mm-hmm.
discovering, and I was like, oh, how about that? If you have some Sharpies at home, or you really are scared to get into just using all the fluid, let's start. Here's some activities to start with Sharpies and
Mm-hmm.
alcohol ink markers, because you can use them for other stuff too. You can use them for just regular coloring as well.
Yeah.
So you don't have to. It's just like an easy way if somebody wants to get into it, and they're great to have also, because even when you make a picture with alcohol inks, the fluid alcohol inks, you can always use your markers to enhance
Ah, yes. That's a
stuff
great
too.
idea.
So it's
Yeah.
good to have. So it's, I
Yeah,
just.
because I'm thinking that if you are a person that, I don't know, if you are coming from acrylics or watercolors, not much. Sometimes watercolors have the mind of their own.
Yeah,
But then if you want to try this, it's better to have, because you have to let it go sometimes with alcohol inks
right.
and you have to
Yeah.
trust. But
Watercolors is more controllable.
yeah, yeah. Watercolor, yes. When you learn watercolor, you can see that it's way more controllable than what people think.
Right.
But I'm here showing the website, and I want to show people some examples here. So if you are listening to this, I'm on her website creativity reunited. And
Creativityreignited.com.
yeah, and this is beautiful here. This is beautiful. Do you have an electric air blower? I have one.
So I did. That was one of the things I bought. And I don't use it anymore because then I discovered there was someone else online, a YouTube artist, forgot her name, but she
Hmm.
showed everybody how to use a blow dryer. So I kind of stopped using my airbrush, and now
Yeah,
yes,
some
I use
people have that, but I don't know. I feel I have more control with my,
the airbrush.
yeah, the airbrush, but I think my airbrush is dying because it's not as strong as it used to be. Because, I bought a little one, not the big ones. I'm
But I don't
like,
find you need. I don't find you need that much power. So I bought a more a stronger one with what they call a PSI, and I
mm-hmm,
didn't find that I needed it. I don't find that you need so much power.
mm-hmm.
Uh, so this picture that you're looking at, that's flowers. I think it was I just dropped. That was a drop, and then I think I must have used canned air to blow out.
Yeah, and
The,
if people
yeah,
are not familiar, the can air is the same things we buy to clean our keyboards.
right, right.
So you have that. They give also a great effect. Uh, I
Yeah,
love when we use. I'm showing here a purple piece and has some
the
purple
gold.
hues and gold, and I love using the gold with alcohol inks. I just
Yeah,
love it.
yeah, that is just gorgeous. People
Yeah.
do this. People make a lot of mugs. They decorate mugs with
Yes.
this.
Listen, I tried the mug thing, and it's actually I gave to two friends of mine, but I was like, it was so much trouble to seal them.
To seal
And
it.
yeah, and I
Really?
was like, no, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. It was not fun for me. So,
Right.
but my friends that I gave the mugs, they loved it. But they are
So you
like, I don't
right,
want
but
to
you
use it because it's so pretty. I don't want it to go
well,
away.
what people do with mugs is they don't ink all the way up because it's not you can't eat out of
Yeah,
it. So
yeah,
like
yeah.
on the bottom, like
But
not where you.
it's a process. But look at this. This is one of my favorite color combos is to use teal.
Uh huh.
I have a problem because Ranger, I keep buying other teals that they release.
Uh huh. Uh huh. Yeah, I love
um,
green. Yeah, gorgeous.
Another thing also, in the time that I discovered alcohol inks, which was many years ago when I was in scrapbooking, um, I had no idea that alcohol ink, so many artists, like in galleries, used alcohol inks. And I think one day Tim Holtz showed someone on his, tagged someone on his Instagram.
Uh huh.
And it is an artist that he makes this. I think Tim Holtz bought a piece of his art and it was so unique and so different. I don't even know how he does that with alcohol inks.
Do you
But
remember his name?
no, I don't. But it's, it is, I was like, wow, there's like a bunch of artists doing all these different things with alcohol inks.
Uh huh.
And, his stuff was very different. It was not the normal blowy and flowy thing.
Right.
And but I was like, wow, this is a medium that like artists in galleries are using. So it was fascinating to me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
um Probably it's on his Instagram still, but here and there he shows some artists that are using
Uh huh.
alcohol inks. And if you are listening to this and you are not familiar with Tim Holtz, I don't know where you are. Oh, no, I'm kidding. But he's very famous in the mixed media world. He produces many products,
Well, the Ranger
yeah.
inks is his. Ranger Tim Holtz. He does it with them.
Yeah, he does with Ranger, which is my fellow state of New Jersey.
Uh huh.
Um, so he produces, he comes up with the colors and things, and they produce it for him.
Mm-hmm.
So he has for sure a well-known uh, community out there that
Yeah. Oh
loves
yeah.
him.
Sure.
I love the thing with alcohol ink is that was a perfect example is how you can mix all the hues of different colors, but at the same time you see them. They don't actually mix, right?
Sometimes they do.
Yeah, they
Sometimes,
do, but it's
yeah.
not like you can still see, like for example, on this PC here, I can still see the degradation of the oranges, right?
Oh,
The red comes this orange, a yellowish, right?
mm-hmm.
Did you use a stencil in this one?
These are stencils. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that fabulous? Like you use the stencils and everything.
Hmm.
It's amazing, amazing.
Yeah, I love stencils. Stencils are a lot of fun.
And this, did you use a marker here?
Yeah, this is another way to, when you have a piece, you just doodle on top of. I have this. It's not even like I came out of my head. I have a book called I forgot it was How Many Ways to Draw a Tulip, and they have pages and pages of just simple flowers to help you if you don't know how to, you're not someone that could draw. Like when I was a kid, I used to think that artists are only people that have to draw from their imagination, when then I
Mm-hmm.
learned it's not true. So this is just another way to use alcohol inks as a background, and you just doodle on top of it. And I see
Yeah.
a lot of that online. I see
Mm-hmm.
people doing just
Yeah.
using the beautiful backgrounds.
But this is just
Oh,
fantastic, this piece.
yeah.
It's beautiful. This one seems that it has a little bit more granulation here. I love when granulation happens.
Uh-huh, for the texture.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And that's why I think I like to use the golds because they have a good granulation.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Just add so
And
much.
these are all 5 by 7 or they look
No,
big, but
some of them were eight and a half by 11.
mm-hmm.
But I don't usually. I had back when I was using Yupo paper. I had bought a bunch of 11 by 14 sizes. So I have done, but I like to, like, what I do is I keep my, how like in mixed
Ooh.
media you have like art journals. So I use that, and I bought these like photo books,
Oh, that's good. Let me.
this is my 5 by 7 set, and I also have an 8.5 by 11. So I find that it's easy. Just the same. One of the reasons I love mixed media art journaling, because there's like a place to keep things. You do it in a journal, and you don't have things floating all over the place. So I applied that same principle to alcohol inks, and I keep my stuff. Um,
That's a great idea. Yeah. It's
so that way
beautiful.
I love to look through it, and if I need to show samples, I have it handy. So that's one of the reasons I use those sizes also.
What is a tip you can give so people can reignite their creativity?
Well, when I say reignite the activity, because I deal with a lot of women who, back to, I can't draw a straight line, right? So I
Yeah.
want to show them. I want to say, okay, let's start with some markers. Download my video. You'll have a 20-minute video. It'll show you 6 different ways to use markers, and then you
Yeah.
could get it applying regular inks.
So if people want to get started, what is the 3 tips that you could give today?
Well, the 3 tips are, well, first of all, let them go to my website and download my video. That will start
Yes.
off, creativityreignited.com. And 3 tips, it's hard to give tips, what I have found, until somebody's into something, until you're doing it. Well, one tip I would say is don't buy a million colors. You don't need a million colors. That's one of the things a lot of people do. You just stop buying. Start with 9 colors or
Yeah.
12 colors. Get you some of
Especially because Ranger keep coming with colors
Yes,
all the time.
new colors. Yes, they're always start with something in the red family, in the pink family, in the blue family, in the green family. Get yourself some paper, and a little alcohol, and you know, just start over there.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it is a good idea, I think, to get like an album to put your pieces, so they're not
Yes.
floating all over the place, and have like a special folder for things that you don't like, because there are ways to, if you take alcohol and wipe down a piece, it'll leave a stain on the Kirkland paper and on the Yupo paper, There are papers it won't leave a stain on. If you're using tiles and you wipe it down, it'll go down to white. It
Mm-hmm.
won't stain. And other papers also won't leave a stain. But you could always redo. I have a stack of things. If I want to do collage or I want to wipe it down and start again. Um, so
Do you seal your pieces?
do I what?
Do you seal your pieces when they end?
Some yes, some no. There
Mm-hmm.
is, there are ways to seal. There's different. Let's see, do I have it here? There's different ways to peel. There's resin. Resin is very popular.
Yeah.
That's like that's not such a simple thing. It's a whole
No.
process to do it, and but it gives like a very hard plastic kind of.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous, gorgeous.
I found that the triple thick spray works if you want to do that. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
the sometimes you just use the Kamar varnish and the UV
Yeah.
spray, and and I have found also Liquitex varnish. I'll just with a foam brush paint it on. So there are ways.
Yeah, and you have to test. You have to be willing to do small pieces. Don't put this on a piece that you're gonna think is special because you
Right.
don't know how it's gonna react. But make a test because also I see that depending on where you live, sometimes the weather can react to
Yes,
things.
100%. Humidity is very bad for the alcohol inks.
Yeah,
Not good.
so and that's why usually when I do here now in this new house, I don't open my porch because people may say, "Oh, you don't need us, you can just open." But I know if I open, the
Uh,
heat is gonna come and then it's gonna be a disaster.
yeah, right.
So you have to test and see. I test, when I was trying to find some sealers or UV spray, I would make a little card like 5x6. I have some Yupon 4x6 and I just test it. Then you see. And some pieces you don't need. I gave some alcohol when I moved from Washington to a friend and she put it on a frame and glass. So you don't need to seal
Yes,
that.
I actually have a piece hanging in my
Yeah.
living room. It
But not
was
everybody's gonna put on a glass. So if you're
right,
not gonna put on a glass, if you're gonna put on an open
right,
frame, so it's good. But we are just talking here if you're not gonna put in a protect
right.
um, space.
Well,
So where best people can find you? Is that on your website?
yeah, creativityreignited.com. I haven't been so active on social media these days, but I do have at Creative Alcohol Inking. I have an Instagram. I mean, I'll get back into it. I've just been working on other things. And I have Facebook also. I have a page, I have a group. I just haven't been so active, and I've been working on other business things.
Believe
So,
me, I know what you mean.
but I do have a presence on there. But the best places to really to start off with
Yeah,
are
and I would, if you're curious about it, you are like, is this for me? Am I gonna like? Just go to our website and get the free video and try it on and see if you like it.
right.
And I love alcohol wings. I have a love affair with them. I wish they were not so expensive.
Mhm.
But and that's what you have to be careful. We don't need many colors, but once you like them, you want to have all the colors.
Right, right, right. And they last a while. It's a good thing to buy also a little Tim Holtz tin
Yeah,
can.
I have that. Yeah, Tim Holtz, which is the guy that has this brand with range he has a little uh tin thing that you can put all your alcohol inks there and lock
Mhm.
it. So
Right.
of course you want to make sure you close your bottles.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh,
Uh,
yes. Had
otherwise
that.
it's gonna be a knot. And you also want to put in a safe place because they are flammable. So we have
Right,
to be
right.
careful with. So yeah, Faigie, thank you so much. This was so good to talk to people to discover alcohol wings.
My pleasure. I love to talk about alcohol links.
Yes, and I will put everybody on the notes, her website and everything, so you can get in contact and see her information and get the free video and get playing.
Okay.
Especially if you can just start with markets, which is even easier.
Right, right.
Um, yeah, so thank you
Okay.
so much, Faigie.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.